Hi, I'm Jillian, and this is going to be the reshoot of a Stratum hoop video. I already shot this one, but it may have been with this. I don't remember what I shot it with, but it doesn't matter. I want to reshoot it because I have a tendency to drift out the bottom of the screen, and I know that's not helpful for you, so I have this new color palette I'm doing of these, so I'm going to reshoot the video for the other one of these earrings. These are the current color palettes, which I love. So these are all glass seed beads. I love, love, love. Love, love. So, peyote stitch. We're going to make the peyote stitch piece, and then we wrap it around the hoop and zip it up. Did I tell you my name's Jillian? Hi. I do go on tangents sometimes, so if you have not seen my videos before, I apologize now. It's just what's gonna happen. I'll try not to. So, threading my needle, I always squish it between my fingers and push my needle down over top of that thread because eyesight. On our tail end, so there's my needle end, I just have my tail most of the way down my thread at this point, and then this is my tail. I'm going to put a stopper bead on there, okay? So, see, drifting. I'm going to try and pay better attention. So put my stopper bead on there. I'm going to give it a few inches, maybe 3 inches, and I'm tying around the bead, okay? So the bead is inside the tie. And I've just done it once. I want a little bit more room than that. A little bit more tail. So I'm going to scooch. I'm going to scooch them down a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so got my tail. Now, depending on the kit and depending on when you're seeing this, will make a difference how many beads of what you're picking up. So make sure you follow your kit, okay? On this particular one, I'm picking up 60 of my first color. This is going to be the spine of our woven section. And I've always counted in groups of 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11. And as with most things, double check your counting, because by the time you get to the end of this row, if you find out you counted wrong, then you're going to be a little bit bummed. So I'm going to double check. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Perfect. So my next step is the peyote stitch start. So everybody, I'm sure, has different ways to do this. I don't want to make this too tight at the beginning because I'm going to need to give myself a little bit of extra room to make it sit evenly. So this is even count peyote. I am skipping my first bead and I'm going to go through the second bead so that these 2 beads, the one I'm adding and my last one on there, are next to each other. So I'm not pulling it terribly tight. I've got those 2 beads in between my fingers. And I'm going to grab my next bead. So the whole way along this whole thing, what we're going to be doing is skip a bead. Okay, skip a bead, go through the next bead. And I'm going to pull those down towards me. Now, it's going to get a little jumbled to start with here. Don't panic about that. It's fine. And then I'm going to pinch on between my fingers again. as we go down, we're going to give this a little bit more room to work because we want to have this base row start out well. So see, when I'm tightening it, I'm just pulling this towards me a bit. So I've skipped one through the next one, pull it towards me a little bit, make sure they're sitting next to each other. You can see it kind of starting to form there. Finger on top. My finger's on top of it. I'm holding this down and I'm holding this down to kind of control my beads. One thing you'll hear me say all the time is you are the boss of the beads. You need to be in charge of the beads. So pulling that down, skip a bead through the next bead. You're getting the hang of that. And I pulled it towards me, kind of pulled it down underneath my finger there, underneath my thumb, that one's called. Those are the kinds of tangents we go on here. That one is called a thumb. Hi, hi, hi. You're welcome. Okay, so we're still doing this all the way to the end. Okay, so I'm going to meet you at that end. If you need a little bit more room, if you're finding you're running out of room and things are getting tight where you're trying to add them, okay, then what you do is you grab your stopper bead. Do it after this one. So I'm pulling it towards me a little bit so that they kind of sit nicely like that. If I need more room, I'm just going to stick my needle through that stopper bead and pull it down my thread a little bit. Okay, so I would just go like this and pull it down a little bit to give it extra room. Pull my needle out and then tighten it up again. And that gives me a bunch of extra thread to keep my tension nice. Okay, so skip a bead through the next bead. I'm going to meet you at the end of this row. Okay, so we're at the end of our row. I'm going to just make sure that my stopper bead is snug enough. So I'm going to pull it a little tighter there. And then what we do is we start adding our beads for the next row. So I'm going to hold my thread there. So it's kind of like a key pattern. If you haven't done peyote stitch before, now that we've got our spine set up, we're putting beads in between all those teeth. So it's actually really easy from here on as far as like adding your beads and doing the actual peyote stitch part. Our piece is going to get real wily as we go forward, but that is going to be normal because we are creating a bit of a curved piece to be able to fit around the round hoop. So color B, whatever your kit is, you're picking up your first bead and you're going through that first tooth. Okay, when I'm looking at my piece, I'm going through that first tooth because I'm going to be lining up next to that single one there. So this is going to be a little dodgy as we start adding the teeth, but it will even out by the end of this. So we're going to go in and just keep adding a bead between the teeth. I like being in control of my spine by kind of pinching it where I'm at so that I can kind of keep it flat. It's not twisting around as I'm trying to add my beads and I accidentally add it to the wrong side. We want to make sure our beads get between these teeth. You don't want any sitting in an angle or not kind of clicking in there nicely. Now when you use delica beads and do peyote stitch, they do like an actual like click into place. Oh, it's so satisfying. Peyote stitch with delica beads is like how I really fell in love with creative beading. But this is with round beads, and it's a little different because we're creating a bit of a curved piece, which is why I chose the round beads for this. Anyway, we want to be in charge of the beads. So we're just adding them between the teeth. I think I caught my thread there. No, I did not. Yay. And going all the way to the end, making sure you give it not crazy tough pull as you're going, but you want it to be like, you want there to be tension in your thread. There's nothing for it to really have tension against at the moment because you're fitting these in nicely to the first row of teeth. So you're not really fighting against anything other than yourself if this thing twists. Then you're going to look at your piece and be like, that is all sitting wonky. Why is that sitting like that? I guess you're fighting against this tail sometimes. At the end of this row, we're going to get rid of that tail. Well, I say row. We go down this side and up the other side. That's, to me, what I'm talking about when I say a row in this case. These quiet spots are where I have the tendency to ramble and go on a tangent, which I'm really trying not to do, so you're welcome. Okay, as we're getting to the end here, we are going to turn around and go back up our other side. Okay, so I'm going through my last little tooth, turn my piece around. You can see it's starting to curl, which is what we want. And now I'm going down through the tooth on the other side, and we're going to do the same thing up the other side, okay? So I'll meet you at the end of this side. Okay, so as you did this side, you should notice that it's a little snugger to be snugger. A little bit more snug to fit the beads in between the teeth, and that your piece is getting a little wonky. And what you want to do is encourage that twist. You want to encourage, however it's starting to twist, encourage that, because it actually gives these beads more room to fit into those little keyholes, okay, in between the teeth. So just don't panic. Let the piece twist, even give it a little bit of encouragement to twist, so that when you're pulling your beads snug into those spots, they do so. Because by the time you get to the bottom here, this piece is going to be quite a bit snugger. Again, more snug. I'd like to just use the word snugger. Thank you. I'm going to find out that means some crazy wild thing, and I don't want to find that out. So don't share that with me if it does. Anyway, you're going to find by the end of this side that this is quite a bit more snug. So in order for this to kind of fit nicely, I'm going to be pulling on my bead so that I get its little tie out of the way, the single tie I have around it. I'm going to go, now I'm attaching my last one for this row. I'm going to go down through here. So down through this center bead. That's going to be attaching my last one on this side. Okay. And I'm going to weave this down a couple just to kind of move out of the way for a sec. So what you're going to do is we're going to hide this tail now. Either have a second needle or take your needle off your thread. You are going to remove your stopper bead, okay? If your tie is loose enough, you can just pull it off like this. If not, just wedge your needle between the thread and your bead and open up that little tie that you had, okay? This is why you need to leave this a few inches long, because you are going to be threading your needle, and you are now going to be hiding this thread in here. We're going to bury it. So it's really up to you how you bury it, but I'm going down through some beads that are on like a diagonal line in here. Then I'm going to go down through a couple more just to be able to secure that. Then I'm going to get my needle back on the piece. Now I'm making sure I didn't pull it too hard because I don't want to skew the angle of my beadwork. Find the end of my thread. Thread my needle back on the normal end I'm going to use. And we're back in business. So I had buried this a little bit. So my next step is I want to be because I want to be putting beads between the teeth, right? So a lot of beadwork when you're being creative is figuring out, backtracking. I know where I want to be. I know where I want that bead to be. How do I get there without creating like a dog's breakfast or seeing my thread a whole bunch? So I know I want to be coming out that way from either this bead or that bead, right? Where did I leave off? On the other side. So I want to be coming out this bead here. So what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to need to go in this way. I need to go in, come from that way. So I'm going up the bead that's next to the one that I just came out of. Okay. That are sitting next to each other. I'm going to go up through my center bead. And then now I'm in the right place to come down through this bead. Okie dokie. So now I'm adding my next row. So now we're doing 2 rows of color C. Again, we're just adding between the teeth. Your piece is going to want to be twisting. Allow it to twist. The twist will become less tight. This is like kind of like a very corkscrewy twist. It's going to slowly become more of like just a big double curl. Okay. So same as what we did in the row before, between the teeth. Between the teeth, between the teeth. That is peyote in a nutshell. Okay. So you keep going down to the bottom. I'll help you do the turnaround. And then we'll go up the other side and keep repeating so that we have 2 rows around this piece. Okay. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay. So we're at the end. We're going to go through the bead that we're going to be next to. We're going down through that bead. It's a little janky to get it through there. Okay. That way we're sitting next to it. Now we're going to do the same thing down the other side. So we're going to go up through the bead next to that. We're going to add our first bead on this side and go through that tooth. Ta-da! Okay, so just keep working your way down this side of the piece. You can see that the piece is starting to curl up around like this, which is that natural shape we were trying to create, which is great. And we are going to keep going. Now, if these beads, I'll just say this before I do that. If these beads were the same size, it wouldn't be doing this. The beads I use for the spine on this kit, this STRATUM hoop kit, they are Miyuki round size 11, which are smaller, thickness-wise, than the Toho round size 11, which we're using in the following couple rows, which is why it's wanting to curl and bend. When you look at these Miyuki compared to the Toho, So the Miyuki are quite a bit flatter, skinnier, whatever we want to say, more pancakey, and the Toho are a little bit bulkier. So that's what's giving us the shape that we want. Okay, so just so that you understand what's happening within the beads here. If you're wanting to use these techniques in something else later, now you know. Okay, gonna meet you at the end. Okay, we're coming to the end of this one. Make sure this is out of the way. Everybody's clicking in where they need to fit in, which is great. You don't want anybody sitting sideways or not nicely between the teeth. All right, last one in that row. Now, I was leaving this tail here so that if he got in the way, I could kind of adjust him and make sure he didn't like pull out and get stuck as I went past with this thread from this previous row. So now I can get rid of him. We're gonna do a little, oh God, help me with this. These things freak me out because I don't want to accidentally burn my other threads. I just got that. I'm not used to him. I don't like it. So we're just gonna cut it, you know, old-fashioned way. So that is no longer in our way. Okay, now we want to be coming up through that guy. I want to be adding a bead right here, which means I need to be coming out that guy like this. So what I'm going to do is go down through 2. So down through my middle one, 1 to my left, then I'm going to go up through his neighbor to the right and back up through my middle one. No, lies. I'm going to be coming back up through that guy. Haha. There we go. Now we're in the right spot to add our next bead. So now you are going down and you're adding a second row of this color because that is what this kit calls for. If you have a different kit that calls for a different thing, currently the other kits I have, it's 2 rows of the same color. But who knows what's coming up in the future? May mix it up a little bit and have different ones there. So just whatever your next row is going to be here, make sure you're doing that. This is us going back and forth. This is our last complete row all the way around. So I will meet you at the other end of this side for the turnaround. I figure helping you guys with the turnaround is not a terrible thing. Any help is good help, right? You can always fast forward. I don't mean now. I mean when I'm helping. I mean now I'm going to fast forward. So I'll see you at the end of this row. Okay, so adding the last one on that side. That happens a lot. Okay, so all I have to do on this one is go down this way, go up through the next one, and then that way I'm heading in the right direction. Ta-da! So now you're going down this row and I am going to meet you at the other end again. See, there's a pattern here. Up and down, around, around, around. At the end of this row, we are going to be adding our kind of decorative larger bead, the one that helps us zip the whole piece up and functions as a cool front-on kind of texture bead. I love it so much. Okay, see you at the other end. Okay. At the end of this row, and we add our last bead. And because our bead sits next to that, we go down through this one. Okay. So now we're adding our final row before we zip up. Now I want to be coming between there. So I'm going to go down 2 this time. And then that way I can go up 2. There's 1. The other one. And when we do this, it also helps anchor our tension from the previous side by looping around the end instead of working down our new row down the end we just finished. Okay, so now we add our decorative bead. This is sizing up quite a bit, but it will fit in there. Just you're going to make sure on this row that you do give proper pulls to get these in there, okay? Make sure you are pulling it so it kind of pushes those 2 beads a little bit farther apart as you're going down. You can pick slightly smaller ones in the batch so that it fits a bit better, but I wouldn't worry about that too much as you go. The main thing is that you are allowing your piece to curl because it will help them fit, okay? And that you make sure you're giving it a snug pull. It needs to sit in between those beads, okay? So they're sitting in between, they're looking a little janky angle-wise, but they are between the beads. And I'm keeping pulling this as I go. Again, letting it curl gives them more room to sit in there. Right? I want to make sure I'm seeing it sit between those teeth. Have I mentioned that yet? It's important. You don't want them sitting at an angle. Like, what I mean by an angle is you don't want it sitting like this, where it's not in there between the beads properly. You want to make sure you pull it tight so that it's between the beads. So this whole row, as you're going, using tight tension is important, okay? Tight, tight. Snug, tight. Click, pull. The whole way. This is the most important row for that because this is where your tension is going to be holding one side of the piece to the other side of the piece. And in order for your beads to sit nicely and lined up along there, right? In order for them all to sit like that, you want them to be snug in between those teeth from the previous row. So don't shy away from wrapping the thread around your finger, giving it a good tug to make sure that it is in. And as you pull on the next one, it's going to help pull that previous 1 or 2 into spot as well. So you're kind of making sure the whole way along everybody's lining up, doing what they're supposed to do for this next stage of our beadwork. See how that second guy pulled back into place there? That's the importance of this stage. And you can see our curly Q is less of a tight curly Q. It's more of just like a once or twice around. As we get to the end of this row, and then we get to do the fun part and zip it all up on our piece, on our hoop. I love these colors together. It's like a metallic brick red with these seafoam colors. Oh, it's so good. I love color, in case you don't know that already. The thread wants its moment. The thread is like, you hide me all the time. I just want to be seen. I just want to be acknowledged. That's okay, thread. You're the most important part of the whole thing. You're what holds all these beads together. The unsung hero. Okay. That's the kind of tangent. I guess that wasn't really a tangent, was it? Technically, that was on topic. Haha. So there. That was totally part of the topic. Okay. We're adding our last two. 1. Pull them in there nice and tight. And 2. Okay. So this number 2 guy, because we want to really reinforce his stability and our tension on this side, we are going to wrap around him and the one I just anchored him to a couple times. Okay, so we did that twice. Twice should be good. You don't want to put it through too many times and have your bead break. So if you feel like you can do a third, do a third. I'm not going to on this particular bead. So I want to be coming out of this bead over here, that direction. Okay, so I'm going to work my way over there and make sure I'm coming out that direction, which means I want to go down through this one. And then down through this one. And then I start working up his neighbors. So I'm right next, right next to where I was, making sure I'm not caught in my loop. Okay. I hope you can't hear my tummy growling. My tummy's making some fun sounds. Okay, so now we're on to the fun part, the zippy-uppy part. You can see how this is curling. It wants to go around something, right? Not fun. I think that's super fun. Okay. So this is the don't panic step number 18 of this piece. I don't know what number it is. I'm calling it 18. We are resting our piece in the ditch of we're resting our hoop in the ditch of the piece we just made, okay? So we're just placing it in there at the beginning. Don't worry about all this right now. You're only worrying about the inch you're kind of looking at a time. We are going to, and I don't have it pushed to the end yet. I'm giving myself some like maneuvering room. I'm going to start zipping it up and then I'll scooch it to the end. So what we're going to do to start is go up through our large bead on the other side. And then we're going to be zipping it up. So zipping it up is just going back and forth between the two sides, okay? So I'm doing the large bead on the one side, small tooth that's sticking out on this side, okay? And we're going to pull it real tight together. Really tight. Big bead. Small bead. Now, one of the more tricky things in beadwork is actually what works for you in holding your piece. So don't worry too much if you need to like rotate it around or keep changing how you're holding it. That's very normal. I find holding it like this works for me because I'm kind of not pushing, but I'm like bracing the two sides towards each other, and I can see the beads that I'm trying to go through really well. So after you go through a handful of beads, give it a really good snug pull. So we've gone through like 5 of our large beads. We're going to scooch this to the end there, right about there. Okay. And then we're going to keep zipping this up. So again, don't worry about all this as you go. Just worry about the section you're kind of at. So I've come out my large bead, So I want to go through this little tooth, through the large bead, through the next tooth, through the large bead. Now, sometimes you might be able to line it up so that you can go through the tooth and the large bead at the same time, like so. Don't stress about that. I don't stress about that. I'm not like a I need to get this done quickly type beader. I like to enjoy the actual process of beading. I find it very soothing and calming and rewarding to bead. So I'm not worried about finding the quickest way to do it. And if that's what you would like, is you're more about the like goal-oriented, like I want to see this finished product yesterday kind of thing, then I'm sure a quick, fun method would work really well for you. I don't teach that here. But luckily there's a ton of awesome teachers out there, so whatever works for you. We're going to keep pulling it tight. You can see I wrap it around my finger, and then I'm kind of just pinching my piece to help assist in that pulling together, right? Oh, I really love these colors together. This top bead is a black bead, a jet bead with like an AB finish on it, a rainbow finish on it, or an oil slick finish on it. And it's matte. So it has this really, I don't know, to me it kind of gives like worn out oily look. Oh, I love it so much. All these little glass bits of amazingness. Especially like it against that metallic brick red finish. I think they look really great together. I like the complements of these colors together. Oh, see? It's getting there, it's getting there. I'm not actually pushing tightly on this piece. It might look like that by the angle of my finger. On my thumb. I'm just like holding, just bracing it there. Now I can see that I'm going to be overshooting the edge of my hoop a little bit. So this is my stainless steel stud part, and that's the edge of the brass part of the hoop. So I'm going to just try and shimmy this a little bit before I get all the way to the end. There. I find it easier to try and shimmy while I still have some of this I can grab onto. Last little bits, guys. These are such a fun earring. I love them so much. I was originally inspired by the Swarovski Ortex earrings. I don't know if that's even the right Orlex. I can't remember what they're called. They had like these pyramid-shaped Swarovski on them, and they were like a half hoop thing. They were so rad looking. They were not something I probably would wear in real life, but they looked really cool. And like from the front on, they had these like points on them, and they were kind of angry looking points, but they're made out of like pink Swarovskis or like green or whatever. And they were just so cool. And then I had seen Off the Beaded Path had a tube circle beaded peyote. And I was like, wait, I can adapt that to be something around a hoop. So I worked on that for a little bit and figured out how to do it and the right amount of beads to get around the hoop. And here we are at the end of our hoop. How exciting is this? Okay, so I've gone through all my beads on my hoop. I'm tightening up. You don't want to be like too crazy at this point. So in order to just secure the end of it, I'm going to go through the bead on the opposite side. Okay. And I'm going to weave back a little bit and make sure I've got it like around a few times so it's nice and secure. So I'm coming back up through a couple beads here. Nope, apparently just through one of the beads. It doesn't want to go through both. It's just where they're lying. It's being judgy. There we go. So I'm going to pull nice and tight. Back up through him again. Down through the neighbor. In theory, down through the neighbor. He's lined up with that other bead, so he doesn't want to participate in this. There we go. And then we're just going to go down some. Go down a few. If you're having trouble getting your needle to go through the bead and it's going to line up and go through another bead, just angle it a little bit so it kind of shoots off the side of a different bead. So like if I'm going through here, he's going to line up and want to go through that next bead. So I'm just going to angle my needle up a little. So these are round beads, so it'll be pushed away and out, which is super handy. Okay, a couple more beads and I'm going to call it done. Nope, he's trying to go through more, so I'm going to try and turn it on an angle. Doesn't want to go that way. Doesn't want to go that way either. Well, I certainly don't want to break beads right now. It would be really sucky to break a bead right this moment. Feels nice and tight. So we're going to leave him. Ta-da! Now we are done our stratum hoops. So I'm actually going to go put a little daub of instant glue on each little woven side here, just to really secure my threads. So I would suggest you do that as well. And these are our newest hoops. I hope you loved them, and I hope you have fun with the kits and or patterns or whatever you're going to do with it. Have a great day.